Um, Only just few people attend today's club, but because of maybe uh, uh, why do you hear my voice?
Yeah, maybe the next week is the exam week.
Yeah. Maybe that's the problem. So
Yeah.
I just start with you. Okay, then the paper name is the Sprint, the Intermittent blockchain POW mining, and it's published at the Cryptology Print Archive. And this paper is accepted into the European Security, blah blah security and 24 conference is very famous top conference of the security and cryptography. So this is one of the most recent and notable research on the POW mining. So I choose these papers. And they proposed the Sprint protocol is the blockchain protocols that maintain their advantages of the proof of work while reducing the energy resource consumption. And then they using the intermittent mining they proposed. It means the alternate link between the proof of delay, it means, and proof of work. So they provide a safe and environmentally friendly alternative to compared to the traditional POW cryptocurrency. So you can see this figure, the change of the Sprint and the pure POW. They using the intermittent mining, so they delay with proof of delay function, and then they mining like this. So it's same as the intermittent. So each key feature is like this. They reduce the overall resource usage by making miners wait before the calculating POW. Then they prove to be secure as a pure POW system, and then all miners have same latency. They assume that condition, and then miners must have solved the POW and POD puzzles sequentially. So they prevent the benefit of the parallel minings. So in their related work, they try to review the energy efficient POW alternative protocols such as some pro-stake or some the proof ellipse time or some the SHIA protocol and then other things. But maybe they have some problems like some in POS case, they require the strong assumption about the network connectivity, and the other things require some reliable hardware, some hardware cost. So they just claim the POW is the most security protocol, and then they trying to research about the related work that the POW analysis. So they found the private attack is the worst case of the POW attack case, and then they found some research about avoid the Nakamoto block concept and probing the security through a single lace. Then next section, they using this single lace and the private attack case using some modeling, and when they trying to verifying their Sprint protocol using these protocol analysis researches ideas. And they trying to modeling the blockchain protocols like some mathematical using some mathematical expression. So they first make some system configuration. First, the first explains is same to the some miners and node, and they define some block tree. It means like a blockchain. It's similar to the blockchain, and then each miners maintain the tree data structure. We know that same as the blockchain, that it calls block. And then all of us already know that block and the Genesis block. And the MetaMask metadata is same as some transaction or some any data in block, like some payload, and the longest chain is the path with some most blocks in the tree. So it maybe can be called the main chain, and then the block height is the number of the blocks in the path from the Genesis block to that blocks. Then they define some time and puzzle is same as the block height. So in each block height, the miner can work on two types of puzzles. One is the proof of delay and one is the proof of work. So POD is a function that mapping the some input and the difficulty parameters to small outputs. Then all of miners have the same the POD latency, and then POW is some mathematical puzzle solved with some independent probability at each step, and it follows some geometric distribution. And then block is the consists of the metadata and payload and some the hash value is same as the puzzle solution. And they assume the blockchain network is the delta synchronous broadcast network. It means when the message is sent, then is the latency is always smaller than some delta. Then they assume also that this delta is the smaller than the delta POD. It means the some calculate time, the miners calculate time trying to the POD. So they assume always message delay is smaller than POD delay. And then they define some block validation, and then some tree and execution view. And then they define some mining function and behavior function. And then these two concepts is very important, persistence and the progress. Persistence means when given epsilon the larger than 0, and then there are some step F, TF, then ensure that any attackers have some strategy A, then precedence for always the all blocks be in the T smaller than TF in randomly selected run delta. So it means always the some blocks, all blocks is the keeping ensure. It means it does not affected by some POW attack like some 51%, some double spending like. So it means this protocol is secure. It means, and progress means that given some epsilon larger than 0, then it guarantees that every step attacker strategy and probability is the within less than epsilon. It means always the blockchain is growing. Height is the always increase. It means it have some the stability. It can some liveness. It means that protocol have some liveness. Yeah. So progress means some this protocol have liveness. This blockchain protocol. That's this is two very important concept. So in next section, they trying to the probe these two property sprint have. So sprint is the defines a mining function and the validate function. And then validate blocks, they have two puzzles, POD and POW. And there are some mining functions, they have working two blocks. The partial block is same as the just only POD is worked, and full block is the all process POD and POW are successive. So when the solution of the POD puzzle and the U block payload based on D, then the one step is closer to the POW puzzle. So if POW page is successful, then miner can create a new block, the full blocks posting. And then they have some validating function like this. And one of the important thing is the POW require the payload of the block, but POD does not require the payload of the block. And then chain management means when they found some the longest block and they change their trees to longest one. And then deep feature means they trying to combine the POD and POW and they make some guarantee when they find the POD and POW to ensure the block validity. Because in here they assume their message delay is smaller than the POD delay, so they always get some validity. Yeah. So and then they trying to probe the achieve persistence and the progress. The persistence goal is the probe that the block on the main chain is almost mainly in place. It means security or some is safe at some 50% attack or some double spending attack. So they trying to divide the problem into some small layers, and then they trying to calculate some probability on the attacker winnings and the honest miners winning probability. And then in progress case, they trying to prove that this high probability at that unless the one most honestly mining block will remain on main chain. So they trying to probe the when R is larger than 0 and then they make some honest miners view and then trying to calculate probability of the attacker's form trees differ than R and it is bounded on minus omega r so 2. So they trying to probe like this. First, they reduce the mining scenarios to a simple game, and then they trying to find the optimal attacker strategy of the attackers, and then they trying to that attacker strategies is the attacker strategies probability is the lower than the honest one in probe process. So they notation like this, put this in the parallel mining, and then they define the mining operation at the step T that the attacker choose the mining POW, and then they define some two subtrees, the attacker's one and the honest one. So they define like this subtrees. And then there's some more notation about the particle and per blocks and then POD deeps. So they defined two block deep, the particular one and the per blocks one. So, but yeah, it's not important for explain. And then they defined some optimally of the attacker strategy like this. And then they first trying to found some optimal strategy for the attacker subtree. Then they define the optimal strategy to like this. So they calculate the probability that the diff of the subtree at the given step TF and last L. So they define this when this condition is true, then that strategy is the optimal strategy. And then they define some longest chain mining strategy. It is means then just select of only the longest chain one. So And then they trying to prove the LCM mining is the optimal strategy. So they prove like this, and then using the double induction, and then they prove the lemma 1 and lemma 2. It means the LCM strategy is the optimal. Then when there are some two executions, the first is if the first set has some larger partitive set T0, and it more likely to be different T in the TF step. So it means the longest chain is the have more probabilities, means the llama 2. It means also llama 1 is the true. So it means the in second process. Then and then we can prove the LCM is always the optimal strategy for our attackers. And then they define some the backward mining, but it's the it means attackers can use the parallel mining. It means when they have work in the POD, and then they can also have calculate with some POW. So it means they can POD and POW in samely. So but it's meaningless because the when they mining POD, but the largest chain's POD, then you can POW after the POD in the largest chain. So when you trying to the parallel mining, when you mining POD, then you have to mine some other chains. But it's meaningless because the LCM strategy is the optimal strategy. So you don't need to use the parallel mining because when POD doing that, it is the largest one, longest one. So you cannot mining the longest chain's POW. So it means that the intermittent LCM is the optimal. So you don't need to the parallel strategy. Yeah. So it's the conclusion. And then when on this case, they trying to define some the malicious optimal strategy. So malicious always mining itself the private chains with the intermittent LCM strategy, but in parallelly, they can attack the honest one using some MDNM. It means attackers does not mining new blocks, but they just set to the arrival delays of the all honest blocks to a maximum of the delta. So they give some more delays for the honest one, and then they trying to the optimal strategy for the attacker's tree. So it means the MDMM is the malicious optimal strategy for the honest tree. So they trying to prove this, and then the conclusion, the MDMM is the malicious optimal for the honest tree. So attacker doing this. So then we can define the two-phase race. It means the same to the simple game when we annotation with $.1 section. So we can now simplify the security analysis with some basic lays. So first we assume the delta is 0, and then we get some lace setting like this. And then we have to we have to calculate the attacker's probability, and then we have to show the attacker's probability always smaller than minus omega r of 2. It means it have always safer as 50 until 50%, the same as POW. So they trying to prove this lemma like this. They define some two stage of the lace, and then they remove the effect of the POD blocks because we already proved the intermittent LCM is the optimal strategy. And then it is same to the POW case, and then we can just limit the SR list to the minus omega R sub 2. And then conclusion, we can get it is safe as POW. And then we know this sprint protocol is safe as the same as the POW, and then we just trying to some probe it get some the persistence and the progress property. So they trying to prove the persistence. So we some define the first tense violation event like this, but we can define this event same as 5.1 like some two sublays, and then we trying to some using the LCM mining and MDNM mining for simplify these subarrays, and then we already know that is the same as like this. So we already get in 5.4 section, and then we can get prove the lemma 7, and then we have to prove some progress like this. But this we can divide these two sub-tree, but it's some difficult because we have to show its probability is smaller than 1 minus epsilon. So we define some two case. The first case is the probability that the first R on its node after the T will not remain permanently in the main chain case. With 2 P1, then we get some other P2. It means that the R on its blocks within some period, some delta using some Erlang distribution. So you can get some P1 using some Poisson tails bound. Then we can get P2 using some Erlang distribution, and we trying to get some the R3. It means the max of the R1, R2, and then we can get this value using some union bound. So we can get some, it is always smaller than epsilon. So we can prove the lemma A. So in conclusion, you can get some guarantee sprint protocol, both the persistence and progress, and is safe as the POW protocols. And then they trying to implementation sprint using some Bitcoin cores, and then they summarize some their major changes. First is that they block header modification. They include the POD proof. And then they adjust there some difficulty, always constants for a experiment, and then they implement POD using the Web-Solowski PDF function. Then they reduce propagation delay because it makes some calculate some populate or some POC numbers. So they, for simplify, they reduce the propagation delay. So they trying to do dexterous hold analysis. The network delay have some effect for some POC probability. So they trying to get some attacker threshold, some and the VDF verification delays for some POC blocks. So they calculation the POC probability like this. So when the POW, delta POW is 0, then minor J get some this probability of the mining blocks. And then we can calculate the average miners of POCs, this equation. And then they trying to calculate the average number of the POCs like this, and then they expand their equation using some one-hop delay delta, and then they can calculate the total propagation delays as Tij. Then they can simplify NF like this. Then in conclusion, they can calculate the POC ratio like this. And then they verification this equation is the working well. It's true. So in experiment, so they calculate like this. So it means POW ratio increase, the delay ratio decrease, and then particle threshold is increase. And then so one of network delay is when the 100 ms and the log interval is 600 seconds. If the sprint only the perform POW 5 point of the time, the optical threshold is still 49%. So it's almost same as the Bitcoin. And then they trying to make some setting and then trying to do theory verification. This result is like this. So without POW, the measured populate is much smaller than the theoretical, because it's the duty of the neural network delay and the variance in computation time. So, and then experimental results are consistent with theory, but is sometimes is much smaller than, because neural network delay and variance is computation time. And then they calculate the bulk rate. So, and then sprint can withstand the 49% of vertical mining powers, which is very close to the ideal 50%, and then its result is same as the theoretical. And then there is some discussion about the non-negligible propagation delay. The delay POD within some each branch, the propagation delay of the sprint and POD combined cause the delayed effect within each branch. It means the unused blocks are affected by POD and pure propagation delay. So it makes some the effect bad synchronization and some make more forks within the network. And then it non-Markov property. So unlike the traditional POW system, it does not have memory needs characteristics with some complicated analysis. And then it makes some increasing the likelihood of the fork. And then delay POD increase some the likelihood that attackers can efficiently split the blocks in the network. And then lastly, they trying to analysis the POD like this. So they trying to calculate the attacker's block discovery probability like this. So when the attacker's advantage is small, the attacker's success probability is affected when the probability time ratio is smaller and the attacker's hash rate is large. Why they trying to do this analysis? They just assume always the POD time is same, but in real network case, it can be attacker can some advantage about the POD. But if the attacker's advantage is large, the probability of the success increase significantly. So they have to solve these problems. And then they discussion about their energy consumption. They reduce the energy consumption by 90% compared to the pure POW case. And then the conclusion, Point is a hybrid protocol that combines a POD and POW for reducing carbon footprint energy consumption by converting the operation cost into the capital cost while maintaining nearly the same level of the security as pure POW. When we reduce the POW ratio to 5% while keeping the block interval to the same as Bitcoin, the security threshold is decreased to the 49%, but the resource usage is decreased by almost 90%. So it means the sprint opens up the possibility of the eco-friendly POW protocol. So it's the conclusion. End of my presentation. Did you have any questions about this presentation?
Seungmin, I
Yeah.
think this is very technical to ask any question because I don't have any.
Yeah.
But how you were relating this kind of proof of work strategy with our network? Because can we implement this kind of algorithm in our current network?
Actually, you already know that my currently research work, the POW, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you know that in they trying to implementation their work, they using some the VDF function is the verifiable delay function. Actually, it's very similar to the VRF function. So they trying to VDF function to the POW. It's very similar to my idea. My idea is the trying to the VRF function, combine the VRF function to the POW, our POW function. So it's the very interesting for me. So I'm sorry. So you know that these architectures, they using some intermittent mining, using the POD and POW. Or some my case is there are some pre-POW, and then one more blocks in here is maybe VRF like this. Is mirror is too big, so actually it's very related to my work. So I using this modeling, and there are some security analysis to when I analysis my POW. So yeah.
Okay, so it would be your baseline paper kind of, right?
Yeah. That's yeah. That's the yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then there are no questions, and I end of my presentation. Thank you for attend my journal club presentation. Thank you.